What's up, nerds? Prophetic here. It's been a minute. I wanted to chime in on Jason's article, Linux Marketing Sucks. So if you don't know, check out the article, read it first. I'm probably not going to link it in the show notes because I'm lazy right now and I need to do some things before I get to bed. But you can Google it and find it. And essentially, the theme of it is right in the title. Linux marketing sucks. He gives some examples, gives some commentary, and kind of makes the point that if Microsoft can make a terminal look sexy, then we can do better. And I can see, where he's coming from. So I'm going to run through some of the quotes that I wanted to highlight and kind of give my own reaction vid to the article. So I'm a little leery of this sentence right here. This is how you do marketing, and having Microsoft be like the standard for that because of their history with marketing. It's not always been the greatest. But I see where if you're using the terminal trailer, I can see where he gets kind of like, he's in the moment and all his feels. So just a couple quotes. He admits that he's a Linux-loving enthusiast. He does say that Linux has a serious marketing problem, and he gets the quote of the year by our very own Dark One. Linux has marketing? First, I have heard of this. LOL. So Mr. Dark gets a shout out. And I've always made this. It's hard to make this point, but I think it's worth making that despite it being a community-driven affair and often light on resources, the community is capable of greatness. I'm glad he made that point because it's hard to make that point because historically, when you have a community-driven project that is light on resources, the bulk of everything goes to the technical aspects of the project. But because the Linux folk are incredibly ingenious and just super creative, I think they're capable of making it work. I think they can have their cake and eat it too. I think a project can be amazing in a technical side of things and also have a great voice in marketing and platforming their project. So I think that's a point worth making. Now, how you do it is that's the real, it's a real discussion here. That's for another video. But I do think that it's possible because if you are a part of a Linux project, chances are maybe I'm just a bias and maybe I'm just overestimating the Linux community. But I think if you're in the Linux community to some degree, I think you're smarter than the average person. I guess that's my overarching. Of course, there's always exceptions to the rule. But I think for the most part, you're a smart cookie if you're really about open source and Linux and all those things. And so even if it's kind of hard to execute, I think we can figure it out. Excuse me, my sinuses are getting the best of me, but this is a really important part of where I stand is that the community is capable of greatness and it can, do a big job of doing better. The Linux Foundation is not going to save the day. I think there's a lot of truth in that, but I do feel that with all the money that Linux Foundation has, it would only be in their best interest if they did have a special, I guess, another arm. They have multiple arms, I guess you can say, or divisions or subdivisions that is marketing based. I've kicked around ideas with some folk about starting a false marketing foundation where its only project or goal is to help educate and empower project leaders on marketing, whether you have $0 in a budget or you have a couple hundred or a couple $1,000s that you can spare in a project, that we will help you with your marketing, and in a way that is within the parameters that you like in terms of ethical standards that the project has, because some projects feel differently about different platforms. So while the Linux Foundation isn't going to save the day, I think people in that foundation might do well in setting something off in that direction. I'm not going to go into the examples, but I think there is a danger when you use the visuals of a website as a marketing barometer, because a lot of people mistakenly think that a website looking nice is marketing, and it's not. It can grease the gears to make marketing, the goals of marketing and sales, easier. And when I say sales, I really mean, anything that involves a transaction. So if your transaction looks like download the ISO, that's a sale. I guess you can say. I'm using it as an analogy, or losing the word sales loosely in this context. But even with donations, if you consider that a sale or a transaction of sorts of funds from one person to another to the entity, the graphics can grease the gears a little bit in that regard, but it isn't everything. I've seen some butt ugly websites that just work because of the placement, because of the project and voice and brand, that it can do it. It can kick it off. So he goes over some of these things, and he mentions there's no easily accessible screenshots, and I get that. That's more. I get it, but he does highlight something that I've highlighted too. Elementary nailing it, especially when it comes to above the fold. Now, in digital marketing, there is some debate. I think the traditional conventional wisdom is above the fold when you land on a website is with the first top of the page where you start off with, is prime real estate. That's that first impression, right? And that is where you really want to make sure things are in that area to make the most of that first impression. There is a small segment that feels like it's actually right below. Whatever gets you to scroll down, that entices you to scroll down, and you really get them at the bottom half of the website. And whatever you land on, that's fine. But all to say that I agree that Elementary does a great job in showcasing, the intended audience, a great graphic, and a great way to kind of make those buttons pop to make you want to download and explore more. I agree. Gnome does some pretty decent jobs in videos. And they are exceptions, obviously. But here's some that I want to touch upon. I understand that these developers aren't flush with cash. They may not have access to award-winning marketing agencies. But I will say that thankfully you have the interwebs, and just as you are able to explore projects and explore technical solutions to technical problems, you can find amazing solutions to marketing problems online. There's free courses, there's free learning platforms. Come on, let's just be honest. There's books and audiobooks that pretty much could give these marketing agencies a run for their money. There's a reasons why there are very few marketing agencies left. A lot of them are small, very few are huge. They're starting to get these one-off consultants. Like the industry is, since the internet has been, thriving with free information. A lot of these old school institutions have been threatened, and marketing, which really combines language arts with psychology and some graphic design stuff. It really comes down to what you do with your brand and your organization, and just finding your own voice and making that work. You don't really need award-winning marketing agencies. Thankfully, you don't even need a lot of cash. And there's a lot to be said about projects just shooting themselves in the foot by assuming they need a lot of money, assuming that they need any money to make these things work. And so if there's one takeaway from this response video, is that if you're a developer and you don't have a marketing person, you don't have to do it yourself, but you can find someone and then have that person get charged with the task of learning the ropes. And even, I would be happy to direct them to books and webinars and names that they can kind of just, choose their own adventure almost. They can just dive in. There's just different places you can dive into. So he goes on this this tone deaf advertisement of Librem 1, which I find kind of like, I don't get where he was coming from. Like, I mean, I get that he has an opinion about it, but on one hand, tone deaf advertisement, and then later on he says, or at least have some fun with it, like OpenSUSE does. I guess it comes down to your definition of fun. I think the marketing ad works, and if you want to have, if you want to see this point be made explicitly, well, on a different platform, check out HBO's John Oliver when he talks to, what is his name? I'm sorry, guys, it's so late and I'm so tired. But he talks to John Snowden. I was about to say Jon Snow. Oh my God, Snowden, and he meets him in Russia and says, "Do you think it would be better to kind of sound the alarm if you kind of told people that, hey, the government can see your dick pics?" And he kind of laughs it off, but then John Oliver proceeds to go to a clip of him on the streets letting people know, like, hey, did you know the government can do this or that? Then he follows it up, hey, did you know the government could be spying on certain naughty pictures that you have on your phone between you and your significant other? And the reaction of the people are like, whoa, like they're way more offended and bothered by that. And so I don't know if that informed their marketing angle or not, but if it did, kudos, because I think marketing is about psychology. And sometimes the whole change the world thing just doesn't work. It doesn't. No one cares. Not everyone cares about changing the world. If they did, the world would be changed for the better. But it's not, because people don't care. A lot of people just want to live their lives. So you have to think almost like 2 steps ahead. You have to be a little counterintuitive. You have to take that risk when it comes to marketing. Because if you flaunt this message like, hey, we're the social justice choice of doing what's right and we respect your freedoms, that's going to go over so many people's heads. And I think they did the right thing in doing it a little differently in that regard. Okay, you're offended by this, fine, whatever. But I just don't think it really sits well right next to this one. It says, oh, just have fun, like OpenSUSE does. Like, dude, I don't know about you, but those videos do nothing for me. I don't think it does. I don't know. But again, that's just my opinion. I love that he just says it out loud, just outright. I don't know the precise solution. Man, bravo, man. Bravo. I think it's great when we admit our limitations on, like, hey, this is what I feel This is my opinion about where things stand. But I'm not going to pretend like I know the answer. And I think I'll give Jason credit on that front, because a lot of people who talk about this stuff don't know what they're talking about. It's okay to critique something, but even when you have a valid critique, it doesn't assume that you have a valid solution. And there's a lot of people who are very critical of things, but they don't know about solutions. They don't know how to fix it. They just complain. And so I give him credit for saying, I don't know the precise solution, but I do know that there are people out there doing it. And I think that deserves some credit. I don't know if people pick that up, but um, I don't know. I think it's worth it. One thing I don't agree with, though, um, that that people who are working on these projects have to be the ones shaping the image. I don't really necessarily believe that. There's always been a vision gap between the creator and the people around the creator. So, for example, if you're an author, especially a big name author, there's always a gap between like what the author wants to see creatively versus the publishing house and what they want to do creatively. And sometimes the author knows what they want, and sometimes they just say, I don't know. I just give me some shots and I'll pick the best one. And sometimes they go battle on what's the best look for the book. And I think that's a healthy tension that the creators of these projects have with marketers, with people who are trying to platform their project. I think it's very healthy to have that back and forth, because not one side should have all the power. Not one side should have all the power when it comes to this. And people who are creating the distros, they can set the true north. But I think it's very dangerous if you try to say, hey, distro creators, be the GPS too. No, they set the true north. Then you go to GPS mode and say, hey, how do we get there, marketers? How do we do it? Oh, by the way, I don't want to take the express route. I want to take the scenic route, meaning I don't want to take any shortcuts. I want to do this right. I don't want to be sleazy about it. And then you set the parameters for that. And so that's why it's really important that people have a healthy grasp of what they don't know. It's really important. And that's important for distro creators to understand. You are in charge of like the true north, but don't micromanage the how, and that's important. I think, to be honest, I think that's 80 to 90% of the problems with a lot of projects. I volunteer for projects that have that problem big time, and it's really hurting them. So get on Instagram, hire video producers. I don't know about this, but I guess every project is different. I don't know about Instagram being the right platform, but you get what he's saying. You go on social. I think LinkedIn is a really great place as well. A lot of people sleep on LinkedIn. If you want to go with it more product utility type of solution for your Linux distro, whatever it is, there's a lot of things that can be gained on LinkedIn. Dedicate one person to doing nothing but showing off your distro on social media. I get it. Doesn't have to be that. Involve your communities. Maybe you should charge the community with learning marketing. Just ask me, hey, we need 2 or 3 marketing people who are really going to learn it. Even if you don't know it, we need 2 or 3 people just learn it and just report back to us with a proposal on what we should do. And boom, outsource the learning. But I agree, you do have to flaunt it. You can't just put it out there on a website and hope you'll get some clicks. You got to go to social. I think SEO is a waste of time. I think that's a long-term game, and you got to do that eventually. But if you're looking for the most bang for your buck, social media advertising, that's where it's at. People are shocked and surprised that people who use Linux are on Facebook by the hundreds of thousands, if not millions. And there's a lot of things you can do on Facebook where people are pissed off about Windows. You can target the language of people pissed off on Windows and just slide in an ad about an alternative OS. So there's really amazing things you can do with social. And I think you have to be a little more aggressive, not so much with your tone, but aggressive in your targeting with those things. And for goodness sake, outsource what you learn. If you decide to pull the trigger, if you have the guts enough to pull the trigger on a marketing ad on Facebook or somewhere, please report back on what you learned so that other people can learn from those case studies. We need to amplify because we're so behind. We need to amplify and exponentially learn from one another in this area. Um, and speaking of learning, this is a great starting conversation starter, this article, but even Jason says, "Add another precise solution. Let's learn from one another and take it from there." It really is. There's no, ultimately, you can learn all you want theoretically, but what I learned is just from doing it. And that's what gives you firsthand experience. With that said, um, I would suggest as a backbone of marketing is to build an email list. I'm not going to get into it now, but I do have a video about how important email lists are and how that's important for almost being strategic with your social media efforts as you go onto other platforms. Social media algorithms change, email lists don't. Start with email lists and let that be your launching pad to social media marketing. All right, guys, it's Prophetic with my Linux marketing sucks commentary on Jason's article. Share with me your thoughts. What are your concerns about marketing? Do you agree wholeheartedly with Jason, or you disagree with his take? In this video, I was a little bit of both, but I'd love to hear from you. Catch you guys laters.